My husband said, "Your name is on nothing," at 71. So I said nothing, called one person, and let him have everything. I was folding his blue sweater, the one with the hole in the left cuff he would never let me throw away. It was a Tuesday morning in October, the kind of October that tricks you into thinking summer never really left. Sun through the kitchen windows hot on my hands, coffee half drunk, the news on low in the den. Frank was in the shower. I could hear him humming that same song he always hummed, some old Springsteen thing from when we were young. I remember thinking how normal it felt, how safe. I had just turned 71. My back hurt from sleeping wrong. My hands looked like my mother's hands now, the veins and the spots and the way the knuckles go a little crooked. I was folding that sweater and thinking about what to make for dinner. Chicken. He liked chicken. He always liked the same things. 47 years of the same things. That was the thing about Frank. He loved routine. He loved predictability. He loved knowing exactly what was going to happen every single day. I used to think that was stability. I used to tell my friends how lucky I was to have a man who wasn't restless, who didn't chase new cars or younger women or big, risky dreams. He came home at the same time every night. He kissed my cheek the same way every morning. He held my hand in church the same way every Sunday. I built my whole life around that sameness.
I raised 2 daughters in that sameness. I buried my own mother and father while living inside that sameness. I thought it was a fortress. Turns out it was just a cage with nice curtains. Our older daughter is Claire. She is 43, married to a man named Derek who sells something. I honestly cannot remember what he sells. Insurance maybe, or medical equipment? Something with a lot of golf trips and expensive watches. They live in a big house in a development that used to be farmland, the kind of place where every lawn looks the same and every garage has 2 cars, and nobody really knows anybody. Claire was my difficult one. Not bad, just hard. She came out of the world with her fists up. She argued with me about everything from the time she could talk. Food, clothes, bedtime, boys, college, her wedding. She wanted a wedding so big it would have taken a second mortgage to pay for it. Frank said yes. I said we cannot afford that. Frank said we will figure it out. We always figure it out. That was his line. We always figure it out. He said it so many times over the years that I stopped hearing it. But I should have listened. I should have listened to every single time he said it. Because what he really meant was, I will figure it out. And what he really meant by that was, I will move money around without telling you. Our younger daughter is Beth. She is 41. Beth is softer, quieter. She married a man named Paul, who is a firefighter. They have 3 boys. Twins, who are 10, and a little one, who is 7. Beth lives about 20 minutes from us. She came over every Sunday for dinner. She brought the boys, and they ran through my house like little tornadoes, and I loved every second of it. Beth was the one who called me just to talk, who sent me flowers on my birthday, who noticed when I got my hair cut. She was my girl, the one I thought would be there when Frank was gone, the one I thought would hold my hand in the nursing home someday and tell me it was all going to be okay. I thought that right up until the moment I found out she had been lying to me for 3 years. I need to back up. I need to start at the beginning, because if I just tell you what happened on that Tuesday in October, you won't understand how it felt. You won't understand why the fall was so far. Frank and I bought our house in 1994. It was a split level on a quiet street. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a backyard with a maple tree that turned red every autumn. We paid $117,000. I remember the number because it was all the money we had, and then some. My father gave us $10,000 for the down payment. Frank's parents gave us $5,000. We scraped together the rest from savings I had been building since I was 22 years old. I worked then. I worked at a title company. I processed paperwork for people buying homes. I knew exactly what a mortgage meant. I knew exactly what it meant to sign your name on a piece of paper and promise to pay back every penny. Frank was a machinist. He worked at a plant that made parts for tractors. Good, solid union job. Good, solid paycheck. We were not rich, but we were safe. We paid that mortgage for 30 years, every month. Never late, never missed. I made extra payments when I could. I clipped coupons, I packed his lunches, I shopped at the discount grocery store 20 minutes away because the one closer was too expensive. I did all the things women of my generation did. I kept the house, I raised the girls, I managed the money because Frank hated dealing with bills. He would get stressed and short-tempered, and I learned early that it was easier if I just handled the checkbook. He gave me his paycheck, I paid everything. I put money into savings, I bought the groceries, I bought the kids' clothes, I bought his clothes. I paid for Christmas and birthdays and summer vacations to the beach. I did all of it. For 47 years, I did all of it. And somewhere in those 47 years, I stopped paying attention to whose name was on what. That sounds stupid when I say it out loud. I know how it sounds. But you have to understand, Frank was not a bad man. At least I did not think he was. He worked hard, he came home, he loved his daughters. He never hit me, he never called me names. He was just absent. Not in a mean way, in a quiet way. He would sit in his chair after dinner and watch television, and I would clean the kitchen, and he would not think to help because he genuinely did not think about it. That was the pattern. He worked, I managed. He earned, I budgeted. He bought a truck, I made sure there was food in the fridge. It was not fair, but it was our marriage. And after a while, fair stops mattering. You just keep going. The first crack happened in 2015. Frank retired. He was 64. I was 62. He had a pension. He had Social Security. We had a small 401k that I had been contributing to from my job at the title company. I had retired 2 years earlier. We were supposed to be fine. We had the house paid off. We had no debt except one credit card that I paid in full every month. We had Medicare. We had each other. I thought we were going to travel. I thought we would see the Grand Canyon. Maybe take a cruise to Alaska. Things we talked about for years. Things he promised me on our 30th anniversary, when he held my face in his hands and said, "We did it, baby. We made it." Instead, Frank got bored. He started going to the hardware store every morning just to have somewhere to be. Then he started going to coffee with a group of retired guys from the plant. Then he started talking about investing. One of the guys had made money in real estate. Another guy had a cousin who flipped houses. Frank got excited about something for the first time in years. I was happy for him. I really was.
He asked me if he could take some money from our savings to try a small investment. I said, "How much?" He said, $10,000. I said, "That is a lot of money." He said, "Trust me." I trusted him. I had trusted him for 42 years. $10,000 disappeared into something called a land trust in Florida. I never saw that money again. But Frank said it was okay, because he learned a lesson and we still had plenty left. I did not ask how much plenty was. That was my mistake. That was the first time I should have asked to see everything, every account, every statement, every name on every document. But I did not ask, because I was tired, because I trusted him, because I believed that a man who stayed married to the same woman for 42 years would not lie to her about money. I was wrong. Claire got married in 2016. Derek was her choice. I did not like him at first. He was too smooth, too polished. He laughed too loud at his own jokes. But Claire loved him, and Claire was hard to please, so I decided to be grateful. The wedding cost $68,000. I know that number because Frank wrote a check for the final payment, and I saw it on the counter. $68,000. I almost passed out. I asked him where that money came from. He said savings. I said, "We do not have $68,000 in savings." He said, "We do." I said, "Show me." He got quiet. Then he got defensive. Then he said the first thing that should have made me walk out the door right then and there. He said, "You have never understood money. You have always been afraid of it. I have handled everything for years. Just trust me." I trusted him. Beth had her first baby in 2018, the twins, 2 boys. She was so sick during that pregnancy, bed rest for 3 months. Paul was working double shifts. I drove to her house every single day to help. I cleaned, I cooked. I watched her cry because she was scared. I held her hand. I told her she was strong. I told her she was going to be a wonderful mother. I stayed overnight when Paul had to work late. I slept on their couch with my back screaming at me because I was almost 66 years old, but I did not care. That was my baby. That was my daughter. I would have slept on concrete for her. When the babies came, they were small, smaller than they should have been. They stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was there every day. Frank came once, just once.
He said he could not handle seeing them with all the tubes. I understood. Or I told myself I understood. I told myself he was just sensitive, just scared, just a man who did not know how to handle medical things. I made excuses for him, the way I had been making excuses for him for 46 years. After the twins came home, Beth needed more help. Paul went back to work. Claire was busy with her own life.
Derek was getting promoted, or changing jobs, or whatever it was he did with his golf trips and his expensive watches. So I stepped in. I was at Beth's house 5 days a week, sometimes 6. I changed diapers, I made bottles, I rocked those babies for hours while they cried from colic. I sang them the same songs I sang to Beth when she was little. I told myself this was what grandmothers did. This was my purpose now. This was the good part of getting older. Being needed. Frank started spending more time away. He said he was helping a friend from the plant with a renovation project. He said they were fixing up an old house to sell. I thought that was wonderful. I thought he had found something to do with his time, something that made him happy. I did not ask questions because I was exhausted. I was too tired to ask where he was, or who he was with, or why he came home smelling like perfume that was not mine. I noticed that. I noticed the perfume. But I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself it was just detergent, just soap from someone's house, just my old woman nose playing tricks on me. I told myself Frank would never do that to me. He was not that kind of man. He was the man who came home at the same time every night, the man who kissed my cheek, the man who held my hand in church. That man would not cheat. That man was not real. The truth came out slowly, not in a big bang, in tiny little cuts, like paper cuts.
One at a time, until you look down and your hands are covered in blood, and you do not even remember how it happened. The first cut was a piece of mail, a bank statement from a bank I had never heard of. It came to our house addressed to Frank. I opened it because I always open the mail. That was my job. I saw a balance of $143,000. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it back in the envelope. Then I waited for Frank to come home. I asked him about it that night. He was eating chicken, the chicken I made. He looked at me and he put his fork down and he said, "That is our retirement money. I moved it to a better account." I said, "Why did you not tell me?" He said, "I did not think you would understand." I said, "Understand what?" He said, "The interest rates are better there." He said, "It is fine." He said, "Everything is fine." He said, "You worry too much." I let it go. The second cut was a conversation I overheard between Claire and Beth. I was at Beth's house. The twins were napping. I was in the kitchen making formula. Claire was there, which was unusual because Claire did not visit Beth very often. Claire did not like small children. She said they were loud and sticky. I was in the kitchen with the door half closed, and I heard Claire say something about Dad's new friend. Beth shushed her. Claire said, "Don't shush me." Beth said, "Not in front of Mom." Claire said, "Mom is in the kitchen." Beth said, "Exactly." Then they went quiet.
I stood there holding a bottle of formula, and I felt something cold move through my chest. I did not go into the living room. I stayed in the kitchen and finished making the bottles, and I pretended I had not heard anything. I pretended so hard that I almost believed it. The third cut was a phone call I answered by accident. Frank had left his phone on the kitchen counter. It rang. I saw the name. It said Carla. I answered because I thought it might be a neighbor or someone from church. A woman's voice said, "Hey, baby, you almost here?" I said, "I think you have the wrong number." She said, "Is this Frank?" I said, "Yes, but this is his wife." She hung up. I stood there holding the phone. It rang again. I did not answer. I put it back on the counter. I went to the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub and stared at the wall for 15 minutes. Then I went back to the kitchen and finished making dinner. Frank came home. He ate his chicken. He did not ask if anyone had called. I did not tell him. That was the moment I should have left. That was the moment I should have packed a bag and driven to Beth's house and told her everything. But I did not. Because I was 70 years old. Because I had no money of my own. Because I had no idea where the accounts were, or what my name was on, or if I had any right to anything. Because Frank had spent 47 years making sure I was completely dependent on him, and I had let him. I had handed him my paycheck every week.
I had let him put everything in his name. I had signed papers when he asked me to, without reading them, because I trusted him. I trusted him. So I did nothing.
I stayed. I made his chicken. I folded his sweaters. I cleaned the bathroom he left toothpaste in the sink. I slept next to him every night and listened to him snore, and I did not say a word about Carla. October came, the Tuesday, the blue sweater with the hole in the cuff. Frank came out of the shower with a towel around his waist, like he was still 30 years old. His hair was wet and gray, and his belly was soft, and I looked at him and I felt nothing. That was the worst part. I felt absolutely nothing. Not love, not hate, not anger. Just empty. He said he had something to tell me. He sat down at the kitchen table. He did not look at me. He looked at his coffee cup. He said he had been talking to a lawyer. He said he had been thinking about the future. He said he wanted to make sure everything was taken care of. He said, "Your name is on nothing. The house, the cars, the bank accounts, the investments, the land trust in Florida. Nothing is in your name. It has never been in your name. I put everything in my name when we bought the house. I kept it that way. I am sorry, but I have decided that I want a divorce." He said it so calmly, like he was telling me he wanted to repaint the garage. He said he had met someone. He did not say her name. He did not need to. I knew it was Carla. He said she made him feel young again.
He said he had been unhappy for a long time. He said I was too focused on the girls and the grandchildren, and I had forgotten about him. He said I deserved someone who paid attention to me. He said he was doing me a favor. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not throw his coffee in his face. I just stood there with his blue sweater in my hands, and I looked at him, and I said, "Okay." He looked surprised. He expected a fight. He expected tears. He expected me to beg. That is what 47 years of marriage had taught him, that I would always stay, that I would always forgive, that I would always make it work because that was my job. That was the role I had accepted the day I put on that white dress and walked down the aisle. I folded the sweater one more time. I put it on the back of the chair. I walked to the bedroom. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed. I did not cry. I called Beth. She answered on the second ring. She said, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" I said, "Your father is leaving me." She went quiet. Then she said, "I know." I said, "You know what?" She said, "I know about Carla. I have known for 3 years. Claire told me not to tell you. Claire said it would destroy you. Claire said you would not believe us anyway. Claire said we should let Dad handle it his own way." I asked Beth if she had known about the money too. She said yes. She said Claire told her that too. Claire said Dad had been moving money for years. Claire said he had a separate account with over $400,000. Claire said he had taken out a second mortgage on the house without telling me. Claire said he had refinanced twice, and my name was never on any of the paperwork because I never asked. Beth was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. She said, "I am so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. I wanted to tell you. I tried to tell you. But Claire said you would blame us. Claire said you would think we were trying to get money from you. Claire said we should just stay out of it." I asked Beth where Ire was now. Beth said Claire was at Derek's parents' house in Florida. They had been there for a week. They were looking at properties. Derek's father was helping them buy an investment condo. Claire had been talking to Frank about it. Claire had asked Frank for money. Frank had given her $50,000 last year and another $30,000 this year. Beth did not know where that money came from, but she assumed it was from the separate account. I hung up the phone. I sat on the bed. I looked at the bedroom I had slept in for 30 years. The curtains I had sewn myself. The dresser Frank had bought me for our 10th anniversary. The wedding photo on the wall. Me in white, him in a blue suit. Both of us so young, so sure, so stupid. I did not call a lawyer that day. I did not call a friend. I did not call my sister, who lives in Arizona and has not spoken to Frank since 2005 because she always said he was too controlling. I called one person, just one. A woman named Margaret, who I used to work with at the title company. Margaret was a paralegal before she switched to real estate. Margaret knew things. Margaret had seen every kind of divorce and every kind of betrayal and every kind of financial trick a husband could pull. Margaret was 69 years old and divorced and sharp as a knife. Margaret came over the next morning with a notebook and a cup of coffee and a look on her face that said, "I told you so," without actually saying it.
She asked me for every document I could find. I gave her the bank statement I had found. I gave her the property tax bills. I gave her the mortgage statements I had been paying for 30 years. I gave her the car titles. I gave her the credit card bills. I gave her everything I had. She looked at it for 3 hours. Then she looked at me and said, "He is right. Your name is on nothing. Legally, you own nothing, but that does not mean you get nothing. That is not how it works in this state. We are a marital property state. Everything he earned during the marriage is half yours. Everything he bought, every dollar he saved, every penny he hid, half of it belongs to you. The problem is finding it." I asked Margaret how we find it. She said we hire a forensic accountant. She said we subpoena every bank record for the last 10 years.
She said we go through every piece of paper in this house. She said we look under every rock. She said we make him prove that he did not hide money, because we both know he did. I asked Margaret how much that would cost. She said $20,000, maybe more. I said I do not have $20,000. She said I know, so we have to get creative. The next 6 months were the worst of my life. Worse than my mother's funeral, worse than the time Beth almost died from pneumonia when she was 3, worse than anything. Because I had to live in that house with Frank while he packed his things and talked on the phone to Carla and looked at me like I was a piece of furniture he was leaving behind. He did not understand why I did not leave. He did not understand why I stayed in the guest room and cooked his dinner and washed his clothes like nothing had changed. He thought I was broken. He thought I was in denial. He thought I was waiting for him to change his mind. He did not know about Margaret. He did not know about the forensic accountant she found who agreed to work for a percentage of what we recovered. He did not know about the copies I made of every receipt and every check and every bank statement I could find while he was at Carla's apartment. He did not know about the motion Margaret filed that froze all of our joint accounts and prevented him from moving any more money. He found out when he tried to withdraw $5,000 to buy Carla a necklace, and the bank said no. He came home screaming. He said, "What did you do?" I said, "I protected myself." He said, "You have no right." I said, "I have every right." He said, "You are nothing without me." I said, "I have been nothing with you for 47 years. That is the difference." Claire called me that night. She was furious. She said I was destroying the family. She said Dad deserved to be happy. She said Carla was a good person, and I was just bitter and old and jealous. She said I should let Dad have the house because he worked for it. She said I had never worked a real job in my life. I reminded her that I worked at the title company for 23 years. She said that did not count because it was just paperwork. She said Dad was the real earner. She said I should be grateful for everything he gave me. I asked Claire about the money, the $80,000. She went quiet. Then she said that was a gift. Then she said I had no right to ask about it. Then she said I was trying to punish her for being happy. Then she said she never wanted to speak to me again. She hung up. She has not called since. That was 14 months ago. Beth came over the next day. She brought the boys. They ran through my house and broke a lamp and spilled juice on the carpet, and I did not care. Beth cried in my kitchen while the twins watched cartoons. She said she was sorry. She said she should have told me about Carla. She said she was afraid of losing me and afraid of losing Claire, and she did not know what to do. I held her. I told her it was okay. I told her I understood. I told her she was my daughter, and I loved her, and nothing would ever change that. But something did change. I cannot pretend it did not. I look at Beth now and I see the 3 years she kept that secret. I see her sitting at my dinner table, eating my chicken, and kissing my cheek goodnight, while knowing that Frank was cheating on me. I see her letting me drive to her house every day to take care of her babies, while she knew my marriage was a lie. I love her. I will always love her. But the love is different now. It has a crack in it. A crack that will never fully heal. The divorce took 11 months. Frank thought everything. He denied hiding money. He said Carla was just a friend. He said the land trust in Florida was a bad investment, and he lost everything. He said the second mortgage was for home improvements. He said I had always been difficult and controlling, and he was tired of living under my thumb. His lawyer tried to paint me as a gold digger. A 67-year-old gold digger. Can you imagine? A woman who worked for 23 years and raised 2 daughters and managed every household expense for almost 5 decades. A gold digger. Margaret and the forensic accountant found $640,000 hidden in accounts across 3 different banks.
Hidden in the land trust that Frank said was worthless, hidden in a safety deposit box under his mother's name, hidden in cash withdrawals that added up to over $100,000 over 5 years. Some of that money went to Carla, some of it went to Claire, some of it went to things Frank could not explain and did not have to explain, because the judge decided it did not matter. What mattered was that Frank had concealed assets during the marriage. What mattered was that he had committed financial fraud against his own wife. The judge awarded me half of everything, $320,000, plus the house. The house that was only in Frank's name, the house I had paid for with my paycheck and my labor and my life. The judge gave it to me because the judge looked at the evidence and saw a woman who had been systematically erased from her own financial history. Frank had to move out within 60 days. He moved into Carla's apartment, a 1-bedroom on the bad side of town. I heard she left him after 6 months. I heard she took his truck. I do not know if that is true. I do not care. Claire still does not speak to me. She sent me a text message on my birthday last year. It said, "Happy birthday from Claire and Derek." No love, no mom. Just those words. I did not respond. Beth says Claire is embarrassed. Beth says Claire knows she was wrong to take the money, but she cannot admit it. Beth says Claire blames me for making her choose. But I did not make her choose. She chose. She chose $80,000 and her father's approval over her own mother. That is a wound that does not close. That is a scar that aches every single day. I still live in the house, the split level on the quiet street. The maple tree in the backyard turned red this October, just like it always does. I sit on the back porch sometimes and watch the leaves fall, and I think about all the years I spent here, all the meals I cooked, all the laundry I folded, all the tears I wiped from my daughter's faces, all the Christmases, all the birthdays, all the ordinary Tuesday mornings when I did not know that my whole life was a lie. Beth comes over on Sundays. She brings the boys. They are bigger now. The twins are 11. The little one is 8. They do not know the whole story. They know that Grandma and Grandpa do not live together anymore. They know that Aunt Claire lives far away. They do not know about Carla, or the money, or the court dates, or the phone calls that ended with screaming. I hope they never know. I hope Beth protects them from that. I hope she breaks the pattern. I hope she raises her boys to know that a marriage is a partnership, that money is not a secret, that a woman's name belongs on everything she helped build. I am 72 now. I have $320,000 in an account with only my name on it. I have a house that belongs to me. I have a car that belongs to me. I have a grandson who drew me a picture last week and wrote, "I love you, Grandma," on it in wobbly crayon letters. I have Beth. I have Margaret. I have my sister in Arizona who flew out for the final court date and held my hand when the judge read the ruling. I do not have Claire. I do not have Frank. I do not have the life I thought I was going to have. The life where we grew old together on the front porch swing and watched our grandchildren play in the yard. The life where I died first, and Frank cried at my funeral, and everyone said what a good marriage it was. That life is gone. It was never real. It was a story I told myself so I could keep folding his sweaters and making his chicken and pretending that love meant being invisible. Frank called me last week, first time in almost a year. He sounded old. He sounded tired. He said Carla was gone. He said he made a mistake. He said he wanted to come home. He said he was sorry. I did not say anything for a long time. I stood in my kitchen with the phone against my ear, and I looked out the window at the maple tree, and I thought about the blue sweater with the hole in the cuff. I thought about the Tuesday morning when he told me my name was on nothing. I thought about the way he looked at me like I was already a ghost. Then I said no. I said, "You made your choice. You made it every day for 3 years. You made it when you hit the money. You made it when you took out the second mortgage. You made it when you let Claire believe I was the villain. You made it when you told me your name was on nothing. You made it 1,000 times before you ever said the word divorce. And now you have to live with it." He started to cry. I have heard Frank cry maybe 3 times in 47 years. It used to break my heart.
It used to send me running to hold him. But I am not that woman anymore. That woman died on a Tuesday morning in October with a blue sweater in her hands and a lie in her husband's mouth. I hung up the phone. I poured myself a cup of coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table. The sun came through the window and landed on my hands. My mother's hands. The veins and the spots and the crooked knuckles. Hands that worked. Hands that raised children. Hands that held on for too long. Hands that finally let go. Beth is coming over in an hour. She is bringing lasagna. The boys want to watch a movie. I will make popcorn. I will sit on the couch with my grandchildren, and they will climb into my lap, even though they are too big for it now. I will kiss their foreheads and tell them I love them. And I will mean it. I will mean every word. But there will be a part of me that is still sitting on the edge of that bed, still holding that phone, still hearing Claire say she never wants to speak to me again, still hearing Frank say, "Your name is on nothing." That part does not go away. That part is with me every morning when I wake up, every night when I go to sleep.
Every Sunday when Beth walks through the door and I see the guilt in her eyes that she tries so hard to hide, I forgive her. I do. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. Forgiveness does not mean the crack disappears. Forgiveness just means you learn to live with the crack. You learn to build something new around it. So that is what I am doing, building something new. At 72 years old, with $320,000 and a house full of memories that hurt, and a daughter who does not speak to me, and another daughter who carries a secret that sits between us like a glass wall, I am building something new. Not because I am strong, not because I am brave, because there is no other choice, because the only thing worse than starting over at 72 is staying where you are and pretending you are not already dead. The lasagna will be here soon. The boys will be loud. The carpet will get stained. The lamp might break again. And I will be here, in my house, with my name on the deed, with my money in the bank, with my heart still beating, even though it feels like it should have stopped a long time ago. Frank can keep Carla. Claire can keep Derek and her investment condo and her $80,000. They can keep all of it. I have the maple tree. I have the coffee. I have the quiet Tuesday mornings where nobody tells me my name is on nothing, because now I know exactly what my name is on. It is on everything.